Greetings everyone, a warm welcome. Hey guys, thanks for joining me. This is September's Psi reading, or collective conscious or remote viewing global predictions reading. We'll use two cards from the traditional tarot deck, and then we will be using the cards from the Psi deck, which is spelt P-S-Y, and that is what it is called, the Psi deck. I'm not sure if it's still available online, but I'm sure if you Google it through, you might be able to purchase the decks still if you're interested, because I've had quite a few questions about it. It is a little bit of a less common deck, and it's quite tricky to work through, but once you get connected to it, I think it is well worth the effort. So we'll put these ones aside first, and we will connect with the original tarot. So this is for the collective conscious reading for September 2018. Often September is heralded as a time of perhaps movement on the planet, because we change seasons. We go from summer to autumn in the northern hemisphere, and from winter to spring down here. Now spring can often be classified as a turbulent month or season anyhow. Let's see what two cards are arriving for September from this deck. The Four of Swords and the Ten of Cups. Well, the Ten of Cups, of course, is a beautiful card to behold. The Four of Swords tends to talk about needing a retreat or taking time out, or feeling tense or anxious. So feelings of anxiety or tension could be around. Again, I see this kind of like ancient knight's garb that he's wearing, which makes me think again of older parts of the planet. So we could still be thinking up in the northern hemisphere, through the European bloc, or right through to the Middle Eastern areas. So there could be unabated tension up there, or anxiety amongst people, or perhaps politics, or even just tensions against one another. It can sometimes mean too the swords, because that's what a knight would have had when he was in warfare, that there could be conflict, like hand-to-hand conflict, or actual fighting one way or another. So we could see an increase in this around the planet, and it could be armed combat, or there could be incidents where swords or knives are used for instance as well. So, and I do note the autumn leaves here, so that again heralds the northern hemisphere at this particular time of the year. It can also mean that there is something going on up there that is going to ground or hiding, and this could be again political issues, or it could be to do with, I was going to say finances, but I'm not sure why that came up in my mind, but we could go with that. Or it could be also weather related, storms for instance, because we see in the background a really stormy, tumultuous looking sky. So I'm not sure if those are some of the other messages that the Collective Conscious series would be drawing in on, because when we do this particular series, it's a very different way of interpreting the cards as would normally be considered. But let's come to the Ten of Cups. Now the 10 is always about the end of a cycle or a journey, and it's quite interesting. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a rainbow in the card there, and down here on the table, in fact I'll move the camera back a little bit, there is a rainbow. So we have this kind of like two rainbows going on here, so the rainbows might be connected. Now of course the rainbows in current society, in today's society, relate to the gay, or the transgender, or the bisexual, or that type of realm as well. So there might be something coming for them, and this is a positive card. So whether or not there's some announcement, or there's some awareness, or there's some big event that takes place that works around this feeling of the idea or concept of same couple unions, or same couple marriages, or things along those lines, I have a feeling that it might be more positive than negative, but it could also be that there is something brought to light that surrounds this particular issue that might have a negative connotation involved with it as well. There are still some governments and some countries around the world that do not tolerate this type of energy or synergy or relationships. So they're still making their way through life, trying to become accepted for who they are, not what they are, which is how we should be observing things in life. The Ten of Cups also symbolises happiness, togetherness, support, success to a degree. So this could mean that either that a union that has been around for a long time or has formed, and this could be personal unions, so such as political parties or marriages of famous people or celebrities or royalty, or it could mean countries that are working together through various policies or things like the United Nations or NATO. These could be in the forerunning for information or things coming into the light, or something perhaps being finished off, like a project that was started that is coming to an end, that is a reward or an award or something positive. You know, a lot of people might celebrate or feel good about. So I think the Ten of Cups bodes quite well. It definitely gives us the feeling of a completion of some sort of cycle, and the bond and togetherness and structure and sturdiness of something that has either been formed in the past and its powers are either ignited or magnified, or it's showing providence one way or another. Let's have a look now at the cards for the side deck and see what's coming for September. It's my favourite time of the year here in the southern hemisphere. I'm a real spring fan. I love the, the passion of the spring and the new life and the energy, the colours, the flowers, everything, the warmth, the longer days. I'm obviously not a fan of winter. Okay, so September. Fortune. Destruction. The Liar. Ooh. The Tower. The Sage. Peace. And we could turn the deck over and see what the bottom card is on the bottom of the deck, because some readers do that, and a lot of readers have this feeling that the bottom card is kind of like the hidden energy of a reading that hasn't been shown through with the other cards. So we see Fortune, if we start off with this one up here, and it's a man winding his way up a staircase. I'll see if I can wind this in a little bit for you guys so you get a better view of the cards. The man is winding his way up the staircase, and he's coming out of the gloom and into a little bit more light, and at the top of the stairs is a treasure chest. Now, this can sometimes portend to money, and given that the side cards have been, with the readings that I've done, have often tended to mean the opposite, especially when we see things like the Peace card and the Fortune, they generally mean that there is a lack of peace and a lack of fortune. So that money might be somehow having some issues, some holdbacks, some cutbacks, being hidden, being kept underground or underneath in the month of September. It's interesting that in the chest there are things like golden goblets, and here right next to it we see golden goblets, and the two cards have joined themselves up. So this could come back to what I said initially or before when just the two tarot cards were here. I talked about money somehow coming into play. So there's a possibility here that money is affected one way or another in the month of September. Now, some of you might interpret this as being money going up or having a buoyancy around it. I tend to think that maybe things like gold goes up, or there's one of the gold or silver or copper or minerals or something like that might go up. The other thing that we often associate with the look of gold are the cryptocurrency bits, because quite often when I look at information with cryptocurrency, they have coins with that cryptocurrency emblazoned, stamped across it. So maybe cryptocurrency comes into the limelight for one reason or another as well. The other thing too about the Fortune card, it can symbolise that something is trapped underneath or down in a bunker, or hiding in a bunker, or locked down, can't get out, it's dark, it's at night, or they're in a tunnel or underground. We come to the next two cards. They're probably the worst in the whole reading. The destruction speaks for itself, with this poor tortured warrior like the warrior over here fighting in the foreground, and this tower on fire in the background, and a church on fire behind it. Now we also have a tower here, and we have more of this old looking parts of Europe here, and we have another church or tower here. So there's a whole symbology going on and a whole element tied in here. So we're referring again definitely back to some older parts of the globe, through Europe, through the Middle East, up into those back areas where you even go up through like Pakistan and Afghanistan. Is there something going on up there, hand-to-hand fighting or combat? Could even be through places like Syria. So the destruction card usually talks about war, fighting, hand-to-hand fighting, combat, deaths, often mass deaths. It can indicate terrorism. It can also indicate buildings burning, and it can indicate tower fires, because I've seen this before when this card turns up. There have been a couple of times when there have been big towers on fire in places like Russia and Singapore, or up in Dubai, areas like that. So it's not a pleasant card, and there isn't a lot good to say about it at all. We move next to the Liar, and he is the whole, he brings a couple of really distinct feelings or flavours. He's often seen to me to be like a political person or a leader of a country who's hiding behind falsities, lies, and issues and problems. So there could be a lot of this going on. Now look, we've had some really amazing, August was a tumultuous month in many, many ways, and lots of hidden agenda stuff came out. Now the Sage, who I often think of as the Pope, is stuck up here with the Liar card really meeting him at the moment. And there has been this horrendous information coming to light over August about the pedophilia and these priests and this Roman Catholic abomination of what happened to the innocent children over many, many decades. And there are a lot of people who knew about it, probably including the Pope. So this can be all tied into this type of action, but it can also be suggestive of other political leaders such as Kim Jong-un, Putin, Chinese leaders, the Syrian leader, the US leader. There's something going on about people hiding information, lying about it, and boy, it's starting to come out. The other thing with the Liar, I often feel it relates to shakes and quaking. Now, as it turned out, August was our most profound month of the year so far for quakes. We had quite a long length of time without many large quakes, months without many. And then August ripped it all asunder and moved and shaked everything up, or shook everything up. So whether or not the reverberations have finished and quietened down from the very deep 8.2 quake that we had just north of the Kermadec Trench in New Zealand up by Tonga, that was 650 kilometres deep, whether the global reverberations of that shaking have finished, I'm unsure. So we could still be in for some quite large quakes, and that shows up with the Liar card. Now the other card that can is the Tower, and the Tower again is representing the Northern Hemisphere, and areas of the older, more well-established places where civilization has lived for a longer period. The other thing with the Tower card, it can represent, again, as I said, towers, castles, older buildings, and these can have problems or issues with them. So they can represent damage to them some way or another. Could be caused through fire, could be caused through earthquakes, could be caused through warring or weather issues. So there's rain in the back of this weather clouds here. So this can be intense rain coming down, and we did see that up here as well. So this can be massive weather storms that damage buildings and flood towns and cities as well. We come to, it can also, we think of castles, and I often think of the British monarchy and other royal families or royalty in countries. So there might be something else about royalty coming up at the moment. But to be fair, with Meghan Markle recently married into the British monarchy, there is a lot of constant conflagration going on there, and you know, there's news about them in the paper all the time because of all the sagas and dramas that are going on around that. So it's not unexpected from that perspective. We come to the Sage, and I have briefly mentioned the fact that he's often tied into the Pope, and at the moment the Roman Catholic Church, and indeed Pope Francis himself, are imbued and caught up in the whole lying issue and saga. So there could be more revelations or information pertaining to the Sage. Now, he came out in July as well, and I said at the time I wondered if there was information about the Pope sort of hiding in the background. So he seemed to come out a little bit early in July, and he was greatly affected in August. We'll see what the implications are for September. The Sage can also really reference things to do with technological information and astronomy in particular. We've had some amazing pieces of information about discovery in the last few months, and I think that will just continue to grow and grow as we become more aware and we understand more about our galaxy, the solar system, and the universe in its complexity and its completeness. We have found that there is water on Mars, and I think they will find, you'll be told, that there is available water, not just frozen at the poles. They're now telling us there's water on the moon. Hello, that was a pretty hidden piece of information. Apparently that was known 8 years ago. So we're finding out a lot more stuff like this. The Sage represents that on a really big level. Can also represent things coming into us like comets, asteroids, meteorites. We've had 2 new comets in the sky this last week, late in August, that weren't known about, and I mentioned that in the last reading. We have had some sun-diving comets as well, and we have had a giant asteroid sail by Earth on the day of the full moon just gone, which amplifies issues and brings more extraordinary feelings to us as well as humans on the planet. Asteroids affect the space movement and what's going on around us, and each asteroid will have its own set of emotional harnessing that goes with it as well as it soars past our planet. So the Sage is a busy card, I feel, at the moment. He has plenty to talk about in the realms of space and technology and what goes on in our space. The card right next to him, Peace, is also, interestingly enough, associated with space and the sun, because the sun is shining onto this beautiful mandala-shaped window in the back of that church. Now that's interesting, it just came to me. So I don't know how many of you who follow my work, whether or not you're interested in the Mandela effect. If you haven't heard of it, Google it and watch some videos on YouTube. The Mandela effect is very real. It is something that is altering the dynamics of our parallel dimension system. It's kind of a quantum physics based theory, I believe, but it's about time anomalies. So there could be some time anomalies come into the month of September, or some new Mandela effects picked up, or more people becoming aware of Mandela effects. There is also the sun shining onto the window, and it often incorporates the fact that there will be something unusual or strong with our solar activity. The sun has gone into a solar minimum at the moment, so we are generally seeing very few flares. We've had no particularly large X-class flares in a very long time. However, we can still get activated energy from the sun in terms of coronal mass ejections, and we can get the occasional flare. So perhaps September sees more activity from the sun directed at us, which affects things such as weather and also can affect earthquakes as well. The other thing about this is the word peace. It often portends to less peace, so more agitation, more fighting in-house, countries, politics, governments, people, agendas, ideas. So there's a lot more agitation on the planet when the peace card is here. And it also is pertaining to a church, and we have seen that up here in the background of the destruction card. Oh, that's just clicked, hasn't it? The Sage, destruction of a church, destruction of a church. Do we see the beginning of the fall of this whole, fakery and the hidden information and hidden agenda of the Roman Catholic Church and some of the other entwined pieces of information and years of thousands of years of hidden stuff that's been going on through there? And it goes all the way back to the Knights Templars and then through and up into modern day secret societies and cults. We come to the last card, which was on the bottom of the deck, and we see the message. And it is like a fishing net with dead fish in it and a bottle with a note. And it looks to be on a boat of a deck. So sometimes this tells us that there are problems with our seas or our oceans or our bodies of water on the planet. It can sort of suggest mass die-offs there with the animals, and we've seen so many of them happening, and it's partly because of the pollution that we have around, and it's partly because of things like toxic algae blooms or really strange weather patterns where we're seeing, you know, massive storms that take tides a long way out and then push them all back up again, and a lot of the animals aren't coping with that type of activity. Also, the oceans are a little bit warmer, which kills off a certain number of species that we have. So the message card often symbolises something's mucked up with our oceans. So we can see high tides, like king tides. I'm not sure if there's a super moon in September, but it may create things like tidal surges, king tides, our waterways disturbed, so ingress, water ingress coming in. This could be tsunami related, or it could be like inland tsunamis as well. It can also pertain to messages with boats, because this does seem to be on a boat or a dock, something along those lines. I did think this card came out once when we did have the big tsunami in Japan in 2011 in March, but I'm not entirely sure that it just relates to that particular message. So there we are, everyone. There's quite a lot going on in September. There's more cards that have turned up that have sort of agitation around them, or more intrinsic messages than August, yet I felt August to be such a full-on month. I can't even visualise September being more arduous than August. So thanks for joining me, everyone. Do leave your comments below. I really love it when you do. There's always extras to add on and other people's perspectives and ideas to consider as well. And that's what goes towards making the whole raft of information that these cards pertain to. So thanks again, and have a wonderful September wherever you are. Be safe, be happy, and, you know, enjoy life. Thanks, guys. Namaste.